Good morning, Cecilia.
Good morning, Khoa. How are you?
Not bad. We're here. Beautiful day, Sunday.
Yes, after
That,
some technical difficulty, it's
yeah,
not too bad, right?
after some technical, we're on. Thank you
Yes,
so much for being here with me today.
you're very welcome.
Sharing with me, first of all, and with everybody what in detail what is the art therapist, mental wellness. So thank you so much
You're
for.
very welcome. Thanks for having me on and providing this opportunity for me to share some of my experiences.
Yes, thank you so much, and I really appreciate you gave us some mom like a free session last month. It was really nice getting into a little bit of know exactly art therapy is.
Yes, you got a little taste of it with
Yes.
the complimentary sessions that I was offering to a group of mothers that is in our own community. Unfortunately, it seems like life is a bit busy, so we haven't been able to continue that.
Yes, we hope to get on again soon.
Yes, hopefully we can do that. Yeah.
Yes. So Cecilia, I know in general idea only, but what exactly is art therapy?
So that's a really big question because art is used in many, many different disciplines,
Mhm.
and art therapy, often lots of people are thinking like, oh, art therapy, you must be like drawing the picture, or
Yeah.
and then people, the therapist will be like looking at your work and interpreting it, and or like people think of like that ink blot test that people see a picture with like black ink and you're supposed to look at it and you tell the therapist what you do. So those are kind of misconceptions of what art therapy is.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, in my training, so I am a trained art psychotherapist, which means that there is a lot of psychology involved, yes, and what we do is we use art as uh, the main method of therapy work, which involves using the creative process to help clients express themselves. And through that and through the support of the therapist, then
Yeah.
the client is able to create art, and through that creative process and reflection process, get a heightened awareness of the self and of others.
Mm.
So with this increased awareness, then there might be some insights that can come from it, and then the healing journey can then begin.
I see. So what you mean is like when the awareness increase, you more like tap into like some inner, I believe,
Yeah,
or
so in my own personal practice, for what I truly believe is that the client has all the answers. So this is my opinion, this is my view, and what the therapy work
Mhm.
kind of help is facilitate that wisdom and insight to come out into the conscious mind of the client. So the therapist is there as a witness and sometimes a guide to
Yeah.
provide some guided questions, and to be there to support the client as things unfold. So in my practice, I'm a very client-centered um, therapy therapist, and what I do is I see where the client is at, and I we go on this healing journey together and we walk together. um, Not me leading it, the client is actually leading it, and if I see what the client is heading towards, and then I can then come up with um, some directives that may assist the client to go deeper into that area that he or she or they want to focus on.
Yeah. So it's like more like a customize into.
Oh yeah, it's not like you go in and you do ABC and then it's you're
Yeah.
solved, like you're saved, right? Problem solved. No, we're not. In art therapy, we're not really a. We can be a problem centered, like we can be a problems focused um, healing work, but often clients I work with come in and it's more of a journey. There might be some themes or topics that have gave the client an initial motivation to come and seek help. but
Mhm.
in it kind of evolves as the sessions go on. Um, the topics unfold, and they're often in a lot of therapy work, there are lots of layers. So you might be having, for example, I can't sleep, I'm having sleep deprivation, and I have insomnia, and that's a manifestation of a bigger issue that hasn't been dealt with. So in art therapy or in psychotherapy, that's where we can provide that support for the client to, let's go and explore why we're having this sleep issue. And then we also, in the meantime, we can provide some psychoeducational pieces where we can then say, okay, well, let's also take a look at the sleep aspect. How can we make little changes in our lives to practice that we can make you have better sleep, better quality sleep. So it's like a two-prong um,
Yeah.
approach, so that we're addressing the immediate issue, but then we're also looking at what is the root cause of your sleep problem, for example.
So it's like a two-layer, like a
Yeah.
detailing. Okay. So I heard the word like a psychotherapist. What is the different? Like, what is the art psychotherapy? Is it?
So art psychotherapy is one aspect of art therapy. Art
Mm,
therapy is a spectrum. So it can go from one end where you're doing art as therapy, which is a very, in the moment, in the present moment, doing it to feel wellness and being at peace. So it's very much like, oh, I'm drawing and creating art and it makes me feel good. So
yeah.
that's the like one end of the art therapy spectrum. And on the other end of the art therapy spectrum is the art psychotherapy, which you're now talking about, um, the, therapy work that involves with more of the unconscious mind, and you're talking about trauma. You're talking about like unpacking like big feelings and emotions.
Mhm.
So when art therapists do art therapy work, often you'll find the therapist kind of going back and forth in between this spectrum, like depending on where the client is at.
I see. Yeah.
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 So
Yeah.
sometimes you'll see that other disciplines may use art to support their practice,
Mhm.
but it is not actually what art therapy is about. Art
Mm,
is a very useful tool, but art therapists are actually trained specifically to facilitate art psychotherapy. And in Ontario specifically,
mm,
we are actually there's a college of professional called the College of Registered Psychotherapists of Ontario
mm,
that govern um, registered psychotherapists. So in order to call yourself a registered psychotherapist, you have to meet all the professional qualifications, and you have to write an examination, and
mm.
you have to meet a certain number of clinical hours
Yeah.
before you can actually use the RP title.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. You give me a very detailed, because yeah, in general, I just have an impression that, oh, art therapy, you just, use art and then you draw and then,
Well,
yeah.
art is very therapeutic, and that's probably why a lot of people are like, oh, I can do art therapy. I can just make art
Yeah.
and I can just, feel better. And that's great. And that's one of the great things about art. And I think we all have been doing that right now, especially during this difficult time.
Yeah.
A lot of people are being creative, and making art doesn't need to be just like sitting down with pencil and paper and drawing or
Mm,
painting. You can be making sculptures with bread dough. You can
mm,
be creating artwork through picking up leaves that you gather from your walks and creating pictures with it. It's all sorts of stuff. Anything that tap into your creative process is what I consider art making.
yeah. 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 I think I love how you put it, like anything to do with creative.
Yes, once you get into the creative mind, you kind of switch your brain, because then your brain is switched from the sympathetic nervous system into the parasympathetic system. So that means you can actually have that release, and you'll be able to activate the the part where you're really focusing on, you know, the improving the self-regulation and reducing the anxiety and having more control of your
Mhm.
feelings, and improving your executive functioning and so forth, right? So that's why it's you notice that, you may have noticed that especially on social media, people are going really towards the creative aspect, even when they're dealing with tough uh, news and things like that. People even like I've seen like many people drawing like comics about the tough news, right? Or
Yeah.
people, a lot of people are buying a lot of yeast and making bread and like all these like sensory
Yeah.
and creative activities really help the wellness, you know, the improving
Mhm.
the wellness of your mind and your body.
You know what? I believe like majority of us doing it unconsciously without
Yes.
knowing that, oh, it's therapeutic. You know, it's like we're just doing it based on our instinct, but we don't really purposely understand. Oh, this is like the really therapy.
Yeah, and I mean, when you're doing it on your own, it's wouldn't be considered therapy. It would be more of a therapeutic activity. When therapy is
Mm,
involved, you would be supported by a therapist, and the role of the
mm,
therapist is it sounds like, sometimes it can sound like, oh, there's just another person there, but the therapist is actually, you know, holding the space, making sure that the space where you're releasing all the big emotions and all the,
mm,
you know, important information, it's being held safely. And that's a very key
mm.
difference between therapeutic activities or someone doing art with you versus being in a session with an art therapist or an art psychotherapist. It's that holding of the safe space where the client can
Mm.
feel completely safe to express the
Yeah.
him or her or themselves, right?
Yeah.
And also the fact that you know, the art therapist is also there to build a relationship with the client, so
Mm.
that the client doesn't feel like they're alone on this journey. When
Yeah.
we're like doing art journaling at home, which is a wonderful thing to do, even especially for this time, um, you're still doing it on your own without anybody else, so you're still kind of an isolated processing. With a therapist, you'll be going on this with, like, it's almost like a team, right? You feel like you're supported, and you feel like, you know, you're not alone in this journey, so
Yeah.
that you can bounce off ideas with the therapist and so forth.
And it's a safe, like again,
Safe space, yeah.
safe space. Yeah. Yeah. I love how you put a word like safe space for us to openly, share and get
Yeah,
therapeutic support. Yeah.
and I think sometimes, like, that whole idea of not feeling isolated, that's why we love connecting with our friends and sharing our secrets with our friends and so forth, and which is lovely. But then um sometimes the sharing can get very intense, and the friend that you choose loves you, but the friend may not be able to be empathic.
Mm,
There's a difference between sympathy and empathy, and a
mm,
therapist is trained to be empathic, which means that they can see it in your view, but they can
yeah.
still be able to give you an unbiased response,
Yeah.
and but support you in a healthy way, and
Mm,
and you don't have to worry about taxing on the therapist, because the therapist is trained to do that,
yeah.
and the therapist is also going to receive clinical supervision by another therapist with their work as well. So therapists actually have to have supervision
Mhm.
in order to ensure the wellness of the therapist as well.
Yeah. So can I have an idea of like who definitely, like, of course everybody would really benefit, but what kind of people that benefit the most from the art therapy?
So art therapy is really technically good for all ages,
Mhm.
starting from when you can actually start making a mark on a piece of paper, or on, so even little kids are ideal for art therapy. Often children are often, you know, interested in art, so that is one of the age group that benefit from art therapy, because it's more playful and it creates it's easier for the client and the therapist to build relationship.
Mm.
And but I have worked with clients from children all the way to seniors, like
Mm.
up to like 90 something year olds. And it's a wide range. And the beauty of art therapy is that it tap into the nonverbal aspect of therapy work, which talk therapy is great, but sometimes, you know, those moments when you're like, oh, I just can't describe it in words. And
Mm.
so that's when art really, really help, even just by making simple symbols or markings or using different colors to express your current feeling that you cannot
Mm.
express with the words. That's a form of held release that you can have on that piece of artwork.
Mm. I see. Yeah. You know what? I remember now you brought me up, remind me of incident with my oldest one. He was, I believe, 5 at that time. He came home like stomping, was very angry. Normally, I was trying to talk to him, trying. For some reason, at that time, I did it unconsciously. I said, Kai, can you please draw me a picture of how you feel? But you know what? I did that without even knowing the beauty of using nonverbal. So now when you mentioned that, you remind me of that incident that it was really helpful for him. He drew an angry face, and then I think 10 minutes after, he's like, "Mommy, I feel better."
Well, it's lovely. That's a
Yeah,
perfect example of how a piece of artwork can actually then transfer that energy
yeah.
onto an inanimate piece of paper, and
Mhm.
then you can even look at it.
Yeah.
That's another interesting piece of art therapy, is that you can actually look at that art. And then you can
Mhm.
even, when you're calmed down, you can even reflect on it, looking at it, do a journal about it. That's often what I like to do with clients who are able to dig deep and find words
Mhm.
to describe. Often we would create a piece of artwork, and I would ask the client to actually look at the artwork and
Mhm.
start having a dialogue with it and
Yeah.
write those dialogue down. And it's amazing what you can find out about what's hidden behind those colors and shapes and scribbles. So even scribbles are considered art in art therapy. It's not about
People,
the
yeah.
final product, it's more about the creative process. There's way to both, like the product and the process.
Yeah.
But often people, um, we joke that in art therapy, we joke that artists actually are the more challenging clients, because artists are trained to look at the product. So that inhibits the freedom
Mhm.
sometimes. So the process is equally important in the therapy work when we're
I
creating
see.
artwork. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, what kind of experience that we expect from the session? Can you share with us briefly? What is the session look like, and what do we expect from that experience?
So different therapists will have their own approach.
Mhm.
I can only speak for myself. I often like to incorporate mindfulness in my sessions,
Mhm.
and because I do a lot of trauma work, and mindfulness is one of the great simplest and easily accessible way of grounding your body, so that you'll be able to actually, you know, return to the present moment. So when you're activated by the trauma and re-triggered by it, if we're able to find a way to return to the present moment, that really helps ensure the safety of the client's well-being. So that's why I incorporate a lot of mindfulness in my work. So often I would start the session, and sessions are typically 45 to 60 minutes long,
Mm.
depending on the needs of the clients. I've worked with younger clients where the attention span is not there and we can do something shorter. But I
Mm.
often like to incorporate a breathing exercise at the beginning,
Mm.
so that we can kind of reflect, like, you know, reset our minds and have a fresh start when we start the session. And depending on the client's intention of seeking therapy, then
Yeah.
we would usually do some sort of creative work. as the main portion of our session. And so art making is a big part of it. And then we'll also have time to talk about it between the client and I. And then at the end, of course, we'll also end with some sort of grounding activity so that I can ensure the client is physically and mentally feeling safe to leave the session.
I see. And then is it, do you give them something to do on their own when they by themselves after the session?
It depends on the clients. If the client is express that interest, of course, I often do like to send a little bit of like, oh, maybe we can practice our breathing every day for 5 minutes or something like that, so that we can continue to build on creating those healthy habits. Um, I I also sometimes bring in DBT skills where we like, oh, there's actually homework or like there's a worksheet that I can actually give the client and then the client has to fill it out. So it depends on the needs of the client.
Mm, I see. And then normally, is it a coming into a mini session? Like, like how does it work? Like, do they come back on the frequent
So
basis?
it ranges. I have had the experience of having single sessions before as well, and so there have been times when I'm working with an organization where the clients are just coming in and out, and I've only seen them once.
Mm,
So for clients like that, we obviously I won't be giving homework, but it would be more about focusing on having a positive experience during that single session. and
mm,
and as the client leaves, that person will still feel like, oh, okay, like I it felt nice, and
mm.
that's where we can go, because it would be unfair for the client if we dig up all these trauma
Yes.
or big feelings and then go bye-bye, right? So um uh it is the responsibility of the therapist to gauge
Okay.
what needs to be done and how long how long, depending on how long the treatment process
Mhm,
is. So often, I think typically most people look for treatment for 6 to 8 sessions. That's
mhm,
like a short-term therapy kind of time frame, and in those cases where it's 6 to 8 sessions, we'd be focusing on more specific issues in life that the client would like to address. And
mhm,
then there is also like the long term, um, until the client feels like, oh, I think we're getting somewhere, I'm comfortable with moving forward on my own. So it can range from months to years. And sometimes clients would go, okay, I think I'm good for now. But I'll check in once in a while, and then they can lessen the frequency of the
mm,
sessions as well. So it's really, again, it's very client centered, because it's also, you the therapist also need to be flexible in that way, because sometimes life happens and the
mm,
client cannot commit to that time, or financial reasons the client cannot commit to that as well. So there is a flexibility kind of in the whole concept of building how many sessions,
mm,
but ideally, notifying your therapist ahead of time so that the therapist can build in that work of ending therapy, and making sure that we're ending therapy in a way where the client can move forward being safe and healthy.
mhm. I see you. So for those who, let's say, someone that want to look for an art therapist, like where do they start to find, and how do they find a therapist?
So in Canada, there's an organization called Canadian Art Therapy Association,
Mm,
CATA, and so I am a professional member of CATA, and there's a directory, so it lists all the professional members in
mhm,
Canada that are therapists, and they also have a set of requirements and qualifications for you to meet in order to become a professional.
mm,
So all the therapists that are listed as professional members will have had received a master's level, or a master's degree, or a master's level diploma with
mm,
thesis work or special project work,
yeah.
and a set number of clinical hours before you can become a professional member, which
Mm,
is similar to the requirements of CRPO as well. So CATA is one place that you can
Yeah.
look
Canadian
for.
Art Therapy Association.
Yes. And there's also an Ontario Art Therapy Association, OATA, which also has a directory. And then I think Psychology Today also has a directory for uh, therapists in general. And then you can specifically look for art therapists as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. You know what? Because based from our just conversation, I got to understand in a deeper level what is out there. Because to be honest, even I myself, and I know this is just a misconception from the public, is that I used to assume, even after the one session that you show us, I thought art therapy is like, okay, you will look at my our art, and then you interpret that. So
That's
yes,
one of the things that I never interpret the client's art.
so you clear that misunderstanding for me. Yeah,
I mean, I can't speak for other therapists, especially therapists that are trained outside of the country.
yeah.
But through my training, I have learned to appreciate and acknowledge that the wisdom from the client is the most important piece of the healing journey, and we need to acknowledge that. Like, so I'm not here to give you solutions.
Mm.
I'm here just to have another set of eyes to see what are the paths that are available for the client to move forward, and then walk with the client every step of the way.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. I love it when you put it in perspective for me. Like, oh, you mentioned earlier that everyone have that potential inside, but you just here to hold a safe a space for us to uncover that.
Yes, and sometimes like there may be a little bit of extra support that the client might need.
Mm.
And so as a psychotherapist, I would also include psychoeducational pieces
Mm.
into the therapy work if the client is like needs it. Like for example, um, you know, not everyone understand the concept of trauma. What does a trigger mean? What does trauma mean? What are the different kinds of trauma? Or, big emotions. Sometimes we have limited vocabulary. Like when you're talking to a child, are you happy? Are you sad?
Mhm.
But there is a whole range of emotions. But often when we ask, it may just be like the go-to: happy, sad,
Yeah.
angry, and so forth. So those are moments that I might go, oh, I think this would be a great psychoeducational moment. And then
Mhm.
I can bring up, let's look at all the different emotions that a person can
Yeah.
actually experience. And then we can have a little session with that client and explore, oh, what does this what does this emotion feel like? What does frustrated look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? Let's explore that a little bit. So these are especially helpful for clients who have not been able to express their own personal feelings
Mm.
for a long time, and they don't have the vocabulary. So I may look at that as a great moment where I can be a kind of like a facilitator of knowledge. And then
Mm.
with that new piece of information, then the client might be able to further explore their healing journey.
Yeah. So can you share with me a little bit of maybe the work that you do with your children to have them deal with that emotion and big
Yes,
goals?
so I can't talk about my clients, but I can talk about my children.
Because you know what? Okay, maybe I will use a little bit of tip. Uh, I'm not gonna be a become therapist, but I can use it to work with my boys.
Yeah, so I mean, and now everybody will know, but I have two children that are quite high energy, and often, especially during this time, because we're all stuck at home. This is a very new experience, and there are lots of uncertainties in the air. So I do notice that the anxiety level in the home has elevated, including my own. Like I have been you know, very anxious at moments when I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, how do we set a schedule? Da, 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 right? So even for myself, I've been using a lot of breathing exercise, but often I find for my children, just say breathe. They're not going to be like, they're just going to go pant, right? So I have to be more visual or more descriptive in my when I give out the instruction. So one of the simplest way I would remind the children would
Yeah.
be the finger breathing, and I'm sure a lot of people have already had experience with this, but I'll just still share it anyways.
Yeah.
So I call it the finger breathing, but some people call it the roller coaster breathing, and I'm sure there are other names. But what you do is actually ask your child to hold up your hand,
Mm-hmm.
or hold up their one hand, and using the other hand with their index finger,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to trace the outside of the hand, like all the fingers. And whenever we're going, and don't do it fast, do it slowly. So that's why I call it finger breathing rather than roller coaster. So when we're moving up towards the tip of the finger, we're breathing in. And then when we're coming down the valley, we're breathing out.
Mm.
So
This is
this gives us a good 5 deep belly breaths by doing that. And so often I like to use that. And after a good amount of practice, you can build a rapport with your child, and you can even just go, oh, I noticed that you look a little activated. Let's just do this. And then, giving them that clue, and then they'll go,
they would
okay,
just do.
yeah.
Oh,
So eventually you don't even need to do this, and just
yeah.
take the 5 deep breaths. So breathing is a really helpful tool that we all have, because we breathe automatically.
Mhm.
So now how can we tweak it so that this breathing is nurturing us
Mm.
rather than just giving us the oxygen? There's a deeper level of like calming and nurturing and slowing things
Yeah.
down. This is a wonderful time, and I, I I don't mean it in the wrong way, but like this is a very difficult time, especially for people who have extra struggles.
Mm.
Uh, but this is a time for us to really practice slowing things down
Yeah.
and letting things be. So it's an opportunity. So I'll take it back. It's not a wonderful time, but it's an opportunity for us
Yeah.
to
Like,
make
I
those
agree with
efforts
that.
of
Yeah.
conscious efforts to slow down and
Make the best out of it, right?
exactly. We're all in this situation. But we are all dealing with it differently, because
Yeah.
everyone have different circumstances. But breathing is one of the things that we all have in common, and we all have this tool.
Yeah.
So that's why I love using different kinds of breathing exercises with my kids, with myself, and with my clients all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Like what I took away from this today is like, this simple exercise, but it's very visual. And
Yes, it
yeah,
helps with the little ones
yeah,
especially.
definitely we do. Because yes, normally I would tell them like, okay, just take a deep breath. But now it's become very visual for them. And I think now if I keep doing this with them, I think every time if I raise this, it remind myself and them as well.
Yeah, it helps us as a parent to also
Yeah.
go, oh, it's a visual reminder that I also need to calm down. Because when I
Yeah.
see my kids activated, I'm also getting anxious. And I can
Same.
feel it kind of like right here. I'm like, oh, it's like I'm getting hot. I'm talking faster. My voice might be louder. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, I need to take that break too. So it's great to practice with your child as well.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
also it may not resonate with everyone. Some people don't like it because if they get activated with sensory triggers, then it might be something else.
Mm. Yeah. Thank you so much. This
You're
is
very
this,
welcome.
this is wonderful. First of all, you helped me clear my own misconception, and I believe majority of us out there do the same. And also, I will take away the tip that I will do with my kid.
Excellent.
Easy. Yeah. Thank you so much. Any last thought or sharing that you would love to share before we say goodbye?
You know what? I think I just want to say thank you for providing the space for people to learn more about different aspects of life. It sounds like I've seen some of your other interviews, and it seems like a very holistic approach. So that is so lovely and wonderful that you're offering this space, this virtual space, for people to connect and just be well, everyone. It's really, it sounds simple, but it is a lot of work. And during this time, it is okay to not be perfect. It's
Yeah.
okay to get frustrated and mad, as long as we can do it in a safe way for
Mhm.
yourself and for others. So
Yes.
I've learned it, you know, personally, personal experience. I'm like, I have not been the, you know, mom of the year, and I have to learn to accept that and be okay with it, and now let's move forward and see where we can go with that.
Yes,
So
I love your, authenticity, your sharing, because you know what, with the social media nowadays, we tend to put up the best of us out there. And sometimes it might be some either like misconception for other people. It's like, how come this person so and so like have the perfect why, perfect everything, but say no, it's okay not to be perfect.
yeah.
And what I see from your work and what you share online is that it's very authentic to me.
Oh,
and
thank you
and
so
that
much.
kind of lift us up whenever we say, it's like, hey, yeah, you're right, we enough, like we don't have to be perfect all the time.
Yeah,
we are
I'm
we are we are mom, we are wife and brother, sister, like we enough. And we are what we are. We do what we can do.
for
And
sure.
we don't do what we don't do.
Exactly. And that's okay. We don't have to know everything. We don't have to have all the answers. And that's a great thing to model for our children too, that
Yeah,
we don't have to be perfect and we don't have to know all the answers.
yeah,
And
but
what can
we
we do
all
about it if we don't know
can.
something? Let's look up the answer. Go
Yes.
explore and be curious.
Yes. So thank you so much for being here today
Thank you.
with all of us. I cannot wait to share this with the whole world, and have hope everybody will be able to benefit from this conversation and get to know more about art therapy. And let me know when's the next session of your offer to
I,
mom
I'm
available.
happy to facilitate it if we have enough of a group that we can figure out the time schedule.
Yes, so I have your contact information here. If for those who love to contact with you, they will be able to do so through your email, right?
Yes,
And the
email, you can visit my website.
Cecilia.
Currently, I'm seeing people only virtually as well.
So I have your website here, ceciliachau.com, and I will be sharing also your email to everyone.
Perfect. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much. Be safe, be well, and I see you again in person soon.
Hopefully soon.
We'll give
Take
you a big
care.
hug.
Say hi to the family for me.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.